So the showrunners of The Rings of Power are once more back with, uh, calling out fans of Tolkien sexists, and in this case, once more, it's because of the criticism regarding Galadriel's character. They say that Galadriel is in tune with what Lord of the Rings creator J.R.R. Tolkien put down in his writing. Um, and what they use to prove it is certain elements in Tolkien's work. So, various aspects from Galadriel's far youth and her past, um, that they use, like translations of her previous names to use them and say, well, our character is in tune with what Tolkien wrote, which it isn't. So what Payne says to the Hollywood Reporter, I would love to see in Tolkien where it says Galadriel never went to Numenor. That doesn't exist. Second, one of her nicknames is Nerwen, which means man-maiden, and third, she does not act masculine. Well, of course, there are a few problems in this statement, and the first one, while it is true that Galadriel never says that Galadriel never went to Numenor, it doesn't make sense that Galadriel would visit Numenor at the end of the Second Age, because by then the King's Men would have been the major faction in Numenor, and they were uh, very much um, hostile. Well, not hostile, but at least not amicable towards elves. So it seems that she wouldn't be granted audiences with um, the queen or the kings of Numenor at that time, and it is a problem. And I think that what you see in the later years of Numenor is that the ships of Tol Eressëa from Valinor, they stop coming from the west, and it's likely that the same happens from the east, that the ships from Lindon stop coming to Numenor. Although it is still possible that, for example, Galadriel still had contact, for example, with settlements of the faithful, like Lond Dare, which is south of Lindon, and of course Pelargir. So that is still possible, but it doesn't seem likely that she would have visited Numenor in the late Second Age. The second issue, of course, one of her nicknames is Nerwen. Well, it's not really true because it's not a nickname. It's one of her names. It's her mother name, which was given to her by, of course, her mother Earwen, and it does mean man maiden, but it was only given later in life when it proved that she was exceptionally tall and strong of body and will for one of the Eldar. Her father name is Artanis, which means noble woman, and eventually she wouldn't take any of those two names. She would take the name Altario, which means maiden crowned with a gleaming garland. Um, and this is basically a reference to her golden hair shot through with silver, which would later be translated into Galadriel when she arrived in Beleriand. And the third point here, that she doesn't act masculine, is also not entirely true, because she is basically, you know, acting the way that we see male characters act in the show as well. She isn't really different. I think the problem is that um, the showrunners don't really understand what a strong female character is. It doesn't mean that she is strong and female, like strong of body. There are various aspects, of course. You have the character development that is also crucial to having a strong female or a strong male character for that matter. Um, she is very very brash and very arrogant, which is often more associated, certainly in fantasy, with male characters. So in this case, she does act um, masculine. She isn't the male, but there are certain aspects of her character in the show that act masculine. So Payne comments with a counter-argument to the sexist critique of Galadriel's warrior status in the Prime Video series. The name Galadriel is loosely translated in Elvish as maiden with a crown of golden hair. McKay said the reason she had a crown of golden hair is because when she would fight and do all sorts of sparring with other elves, so she would braid her hair and put it up to the top of her head to stay out of the way. So in the etymology is the idea that Galadriel is a warrior. Also, that isn't entirely true because in the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, in his letter to Catherine Finday, he says that it was done. It was her hair was bound up when she took part in athletic feats, so not in fighting. That doesn't mean that she couldn't spar and she couldn't bind up her golden hair when she would spar with other elves because she's still from a noble house. So it's only reasonable that she would have some kind of training with blades, but it isn't specifically for fighting. So a following point is from Morphet Clark herself. She says that her younger version chimes perfectly with the later depiction of the elven noble in Peter Jackson's famous movie trilogy, where she is depicted as knowledgeable and regal by Kate Blanchett. Speaking just after the show's premiere in September 2022, she explained that the future version of her character had achieved a hard-earned sense of serenity, saying, "I don't think you get to that level of wisdom without going through things." Of course, she went through a lot of things, Galadriel, during the first age and the second age, but this character that was created for the Rings of Power, she is not Galadriel in the second age, because Galadriel was actually ruling realms of elves, or at least groups of elves. She ruled in Lindon under Gil-galad. She established the realm of Eregion with Celebrimbor, which she then ruled under Gil-galad. And when Celebrimbor took over Eregion, she went through the mines of Khazad-dûm to Lorien, and she was one who created the alliance with the dwarves of Khazad-dûm. It's not Elrond who did that, so she was a ruler in that sense. And if you say that, of course, that this character doesn't fit with Galadriel in the second age, that doesn't mean that you're sexist. It's just, gathering up the facts and speaking them out loud. So still, of course, the showrunners are convinced that the prequel series win over skeptics in the end, with McKay adding that the next season of the show will be bigger and better on every level by an order of magnitude. Yeah, we can only hope so, because it can't really get any worse, it seems. And on every level, I hope that does mean costume design, set design, backgrounds, location design, character development, character backgrounds, dialogue, the used lore, because at this point they can't destroy much more of the lore, it seems. But there's only one more episode to go this season, which airs this Friday or Thursday if you're in the United States, I guess. But yeah, I bet you that they are still going to find things that they can break down. And it's of course an argument of the showrunners that they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, etc., to use certain aspects. But you see in this article that they go through great lengths to find aspects in the lore of Tolkien to justify their choices. For example, the character of Galadriel being a warrior in the show and nothing else. But the problem is that they don't really follow it through, so they read one part of the lore, they take it out, they put it in their show, but they discard all the rest of it. So they just took her mother name Narwen and they put it in the show, but they didn't really take up the name of Artanis, meaning noble woman. They didn't take up the name Altariel, even though they mention the translation into Galadriel. They don't use any of that, so they don't follow through on their supposed Tolkien knowledge. that is one of the main problems of the show. That even though they use bits of lore here and there, that to justify characters, they don't really think about consequences or the continuation of this lore. So it is an argument that is very much fabricated, and people who are saying that Galadriel isn't the Galadriel of the Second Age, they are right in every sense of the word. That she isn't the same character, and using like these pieces or these selected pieces of lore to go against these fans and saying that they're sexist, um, because they say that this character isn't the same. It's completely insane, and it shows how much hate there is from the showrunners against fans, how much hate there is from modern movie studios and series executives towards fans who criticize it. Because if you see what happens, this is a trend that happens of throwing isms like sexism and racism and phobias towards people, towards fans who have legitimate criticisms regarding characters, regarding story, regarding dialogue, etc. So it is basically using these isms and phobias to just try to slow down or put all the criticisms in the freezer, because nobody likes being called a sexist, nobody likes being called racist, um, but it is just a means to go against fans with legitimate criticism, because they can't really ignore these criticisms, and they really can't overrule them because they are in the wrong and they know it. But anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and see you in the next one. Goodbye.